Interesting enough, this is how the iPhone 8, the 2017 iPhone, is going to look like. It's going to look really similar to this phone, the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, and that's just awesome. So the iPhone 7 hasn't even been released yet, but we already know quite a lot of details when it comes to the next generation iPhone, the iPhone 8 2017 iPhone. So hey everyone, welcome to the Zone of Tech, I'm Daniel, and welcome to my Leaks and Rumors series, the series in which I discuss in detail all the details you need to know when it comes to an upcoming device. And in this episode, I'll be covering the iPhone 8, the 2017 iPhone, and this is going to be a really interesting phone. Because Apple is actually, well, the iPhone is actually turning 10 years in 2017. So this is going to be a huge change. Can't really wait to tell you guys everything we currently know about the iPhone 8. So yeah, here's everything we currently know about the iPhone 8. Enjoy. Okay, so you might have seen my Final Leaks and Rumors series on the iPhone 7, and yeah, you pretty much know that the iPhone 7 is going to be pretty much identical to the iPhone 6 and 6S. So yeah, we get the exact same design as on the iPhone 6 and 6S. The only actual differences are going to be, well, the lack of the two antenna lines on the back. We're also going to get improved performance, better cameras, especially on the iPhone 7 Pro. This one will come with that dual camera sensor. Now, the biggest change is actually going to be in terms of that headphone jack going away, but other than that, well, the iPhone 7 is also going to be waterproof, but other than that, well, no big changes actually. And because of all these leaks about the iPhone 7, well, the Apple community, everyone became pretty disappointed that the iPhone 7 won't actually come with any big changes. And also because of this, Apple is going to make some pretty big changes when it comes to the next generation iPhone, the iPhone 8, the 2017 iPhone. So number one, we have the name. So in terms of the iPhone 7, we still don't know for sure if it's actually going to be called the iPhone 7. Just because there aren't enough differences between the supposed iPhone 7 and the iPhone 6 and 6S, and also a brand new number implies a brand new design, a completely new design, which the iPhone 7, the 2016 iPhone, won't have. Now, some sources have pointed towards Apple calling this the iPhone 6 SE, which would be one of the worst ideas ever, especially since the current generation iPhone SE is not even called the iPhone 5 SE, so 6 SE would bring even more confusion. So for this year's iPhone, I would honestly put my money on an iPhone 7 naming scheme. Now, what about the next iPhone, 2017 iPhone? Is it going to be an iPhone 7S? Well, most likely not. So the 2017 iPhone is either going to be called the iPhone 8 or the iPhone 7 if this iPhone is going to be called iPhone 6 SE, although I don't think so. So the iPhone 8 is most likely going to be its name. Now also keep in mind that the iPhone is actually turning 10 years next year, so Apple might actually drop the whole naming scheme and just call the iPhone, or they might just call it the iPhone X and then X1 and so on. So those two things are also possibilities. But still, I would put my money on the iPhone 8 as its name. Okay, so now that we know how it's going to be called, how is it going to look like? So section number 2, we have the design. So in terms of the design, the iPhone 8 is going to have the biggest design change yet. It's supposedly going to come with a full glass body. So that means glass on both the front and the back, which kind of reminds us of the old iPhone 4 and 4S, just a much more modern version this time. But it's not just going to be a more modern version of the iPhone 4 and 4S, and the iPhone 8 is actually going to look insane. The front panel is actually going to be curved around the edges, and we might also see a slightly curved back as well. Okay, so how do I know all this? Well, Apple has actually applied for a patent, actually for multiple patents, involving an iPhone with a glass front that curves completely around the edges. So yeah, these are the patents, and some even made some renderings based on those patents. So this just might be how the iPhone 8 will look like. Now, I personally don't think it's going to be that round and that curved, but overall it's going to be really similar to the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge when it comes to the design. And I'm personally really excited for this. The Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, in my opinion, is the best looking phone. I mean, just take a look at this thing. It looks insane. I would honestly love an S7 Edge running iOS. iOS is still much more fluid than Android, especially when you have TouchWiz running on top of Android. And besides this, iOS also comes with much better RAM management, so performance-wise, yes, iOS is superior. However, when it comes to features and customization, Android is still much more superior. But that's a topic for a different video. Now, the biggest design issue when it comes to the iPhone 6 and 6S is in terms of those top and bottom bezels. So yeah, the iPhone bezels are just huge. Those bezels are huge because, well, we have a huge home button that's circular compared to, for example, Samsung's home button, which is much more rectangular. So because of that home button's shape, they needed pretty big bottom bezels, and because of that, they also needed a matching top one. Take a look at the iPhone 6s Plus versus the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge. There's a massive difference when it comes to the size of those two phones, even though they actually have the exact same display size. One of the phones is much shorter in both width and height, and you can probably tell which one. Reducing the size of those bezels or even removing them completely would make the iPhone look much sleeker and could also bring a much larger display. So we do expect to see a slightly larger 5-inch display on the iPhone 8 from 4.7 inches and a 5.8-inch display on the iPhone 8 Pro or the iPhone 8 Plus from 5.5 inches. So a larger display but in the same form factor, this would be a huge plus. Now you're all probably wondering what would happen with a home button, where would it go? So I actually talked about this in my iPhone 7 Leaks and Rumors series, and Apple has actually applied for a patent which involves a Force Touch home button. So this will most likely make an appearance with the iPhone 7, so the iPhone 7 will most likely come with a Force Touch home button, but then Apple has also applied for a patent that involves the use of 3D Touch as the actual home button. And using 3D Touch as the home button means that you don't actually need a physical home button anymore. You would be able to just press on the screen in the home button area and it would actually act as the home button itself. Not sure how double pressing for multitasking and reachability would work. Hopefully Apple will add some capacitive buttons as well. Let me know in the comments what you think about this, but I do think this is also an issue on iOS. The back button is on the top left, and some apps do support slide to go back, but not all of them, and those that do not support it, especially on the larger iPhone Plus models, well, it's pretty difficult for some users to reach the top bit. So brand new design with a curved glass display, no home button, while the iPhone 8 is starting to look pretty awesome so far. What do you guys think about the S7 Edge's design? In my opinion, this is the most beautifully designed phone, and the iPhone 8 is going to be really similar to this phone when it comes to design. Actually, the iPhone 8 might be even better looking than the S7 Edge. I'm really excited for that. Finally, moving on to section number 3, because the design section was pretty long. Section number 3, we have the actual display. So in terms of the display technology, Apple is finally going to switch from LCD to OLED, finally. So initially, Apple was supposed to switch to OLED only in 2018, but apparently they've changed their mind for 2017 instead. So just a few months ago in April, Apple has actually signed a huge deal with Samsung, a $2.5 billion agreement. So Apple has actually ordered 100 million displays, OLED displays, for the next iPhone in 2017. And the difference between OLED displays and LCDs is just huge. On LCD displays, the pixels only give the color, so you always need a backlight, and then on OLED displays, the pixels give both the color and the brightness. And that is why only on OLED displays you can actually have that true black. Because on LCD displays, if for example you have a black background and some white text in the middle, you still need a backlight for all the pixels on the display, whereas on OLED you only need to white up the white text. And the second big advantage to OLED is the power consumption. Since you only need to light up the pixels that are active, well, you can have the rest of them turned off, so you can only have like 1% of the display active instead of 100% like you have to do on LCD displays the whole time. So it consumes much less power. Apple only has one OLED product, and that's the Apple Watch. However, a big disadvantage to OLED displays, and the reason why Apple hasn't switched to OLED yet, is because they have a higher burnout rate than LCDs, so they usually don't last as long as LCDs, and they're also much more expensive than LCDs. They also tend to oversaturate colors too much, but overall, in terms of the picture quality, color gamut, and power consumption, OLED is the best display technology on the market right now. So in terms of the display technology, finally, OLED. Now in terms of the actual display size, we're not 100% sure because, as I said before, Apple has patented this, an iPhone with a curved display that curves around the entire edges, and this is most likely going to be the case. All sources, the patents, and everything point toward this. An iPhone 8 with a 5-inch display in the same form factor, and then an iPhone 8 Plus or the iPhone 8 Pro with a 5.7 or 5.8-inch display, again in the same form factor. Now, interesting enough, all of those 100 million orders were only for 5.5 inches displays, not 4.7 or 5 inches or 5.8 inches, 5.5 inches. All of them. This is actually confirmed, which means that Apple will actually opt for a smaller form factor and the same display size. So then the Plus will stay at 5.5 inches, but maybe, hopefully, the normal model will go up to 5 inches. And a 5.5-inch display is actually pretty good for the Plus model because the Plus model is already pretty large. And by reducing those bezels and keeping the same display size, the phone will actually be quite a lot smaller than the current generation. So it will be much easier to use in one hand. Now in terms of the resolution, we're finally expecting to see a resolution bump. So unfortunately, we didn't get to see any resolution bump with the iPhone 7. However, with the iPhone 8, we're finally expecting a Quad HD display on both models, so 2560 by 1440p display on both the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 8 Plus or the iPhone 8 Pro. Some reports suggest a 4K resolution display coming to the iPhone 8 Pro, although I personally do not see this happening. Apple is usually pretty strict when it comes to resolution. So this resolution will translate to about 587 ppi on the iPhone 8 and then 515 on the iPhone 8 Plus or the iPhone 8 Pro. That's a huge gain from the current generation iPhones. Currently the iPhone 6 and 6s come with a 326 ppi, whereas the iPhone 6 Plus and the iPhone 6s Plus, they come with 401. So yeah, this is a really welcome improvement. In case you haven't seen an S7 Edge display in person, you need to see it, it's incredible. It's Quad HD resolution, plus the fact that it's also an AMOLED display. Even with those oversaturated colors, well, it still makes an incredible viewing experience. And the iPhone 8 will finally feature such a gorgeous display. I cannot wait. Also in terms of the display glass actually, we're expecting to see Gorilla Glass 5 on the iPhone 8. So Gorilla Glass 5 is now official, and it can sustain drops of up to 1.5 meters on concrete. That's insane. And this is going to be really useful in the iPhone 8 because the iPhone 8 is going to have glass on both the front and the back. So that glass needs to be as shatterproof or shatter resistant as possible. And apparently Gorilla Glass 5 can provide that. Pretty cool. Moving on to section number 4, we have the camera. Now in terms of the camera, we don't really know that many details. So the iPhone 7 is indeed coming with some pretty big updates. One of them is going to be a larger sensor, which will allow much better low light photography, and then the second one is also going to be a much larger aperture, possibly f1.7 or f1.9, which will also improve the low light photography. Now also in the iPhone 7 Pro, we do get that dual camera module. So the iPhone 7 is indeed coming with some pretty big camera updates, but what about the iPhone 8? So one possibility will be that dual camera module on both the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 8 Pro, although I personally do not see this happening just because you need a lot more space inside just for that dual camera module, which the iPhone 8 will probably not have, especially if the display is going to occupy the entire front panel. What we might get is a resolution bump from 12 megapixels to 16. So with the iPhone 6s, we got a resolution bump from 8 megapixels to 12 megapixels. The iPhone 7 didn't bring any changes when it came to resolution, and hopefully those changes will be coming in the next iPhone. In terms of the front-facing camera, it depends on the iPhone 7. So the iPhone 7 might be getting an 8 megapixel front-facing camera. If this is the case, then the iPhone 8 will have the exact same front-facing camera. Otherwise, if the iPhone 7 is going to have the same front-facing camera, although I don't think so, as the iPhone 6s, then the iPhone 8 is going to get an 8 megapixel front-facing camera with an f1.7 aperture and Quad HD video recording. Other than that, don't expect any big camera updates. Usually those big camera updates are in the S models, even though this is basically the iPhone 7s, just with a different name, iPhone 8. Moving on to section number 5, we have the specs. In terms of the CPU, we're going to get the Apple A11 processor. And the Apple A10 processor, this is the one included in the iPhone 7. The Apple A10 processor is simply a beast. It's a 10 nanometer process, and it's also a 6-core CPU. On paper, it has the exact same performance as the Apple A9X chip, which was included in the iPad Pros. And that's just insane. The Apple A9X inside the iPad Pros is just an incredible chip. That processor is so fast that it actually outperformed my i7 quad-core CPU inside my Retina MacBook Pro 15-inch. Yeah, that's a 2.3 GHz Haswell chip. So the A9X outperformed that chip when it came to 4K video editing export time. So the Apple A10 comes with about 20% improvement over the A9 in terms of the performance, and about a 30% improvement when it comes to the power consumption, since it's basically based on a 10 nanometer process, which is smaller. While the Apple A11 is still going to be based on a 10 nanometer process, so it's still going to have about the same power consumption, probably just a 5 to 10 improvement over the A10. And then in terms of the performance, the Apple A11 is going to be really impressive. So it's going to come with a brand new architecture just like the Apple A9 did, which means about a 40 to 50% performance improvement, and that's going to be just insane. Now in terms of the RAM, on the iPhone 7 we have 2 GB of RAM, and on the iPhone 7 Pro we're expecting to have 3 GB. Now with the iPhone 8 we're either expecting to get 3 GB on both models, so both the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 8 Pro, or 3 GB on the iPhone 8 and then 4 GB on the iPhone 8 Pro. So a pretty huge performance boost as well. So far it's looking really awesome for the iPhone 8. Next up, number 6, we have special features. So with the iPhone 7 we won't actually be seeing any cool special features. Well, the headphone jack is going away, so that's one, although I don't think this is a feature, this is the absence of a feature. And the iPhone 7 is also going to be water resistant to IP68, so this is basically the number one feature, and then stereo speakers, and that's pretty much it. And on the iPhone 8, one of the biggest features is going to be the lack of not a headphone jack this time, but a home button. So yeah, the home button is supposedly going to be replaced by 3D Touch entirely. Now the second special feature, this is most likely coming as well. Apple has just patented about a week ago an iris scanner for the next generation iPhone. So this is basically what Samsung has patented for the Note 7. Now even though an iris scanner is a pretty cool idea, it's not that useful. One, because you need some really good lighting conditions like I have now, for example, and then two, you also need to keep your phone really close to your eyes. However, the advantage is pretty good. The biggest advantage is that if you have all the necessary lighting conditions, it will always work. whereas a fingerprint reader doesn't work all the time. Next up, we have wireless charging. So Apple has been working on this for quite a while. I actually talked about this in my iPhone 7 Finding Some Rumors series. Apple is currently working on 2 ways to wirelessly charge your iPhone. One of them is the one that we currently have on our smartphones, where you simply have an accessory, a power adapter, and you just place your phone on that power pad and then it charges wirelessly. But Apple is also working on a version that has much more range. By much more range, I mean about 30 centimeters from the base, and that's pretty huge. Now, in case you're wondering, charging a smartphone through Wi-Fi networks is indeed possible. Basically, a company in Japan has been playing around with this for a while now. They actually managed to charge an iPhone via case. They managed to charge about 10%. I think it was in an hour. So yeah, really slow charge, but still, it's possible. This is definitely not coming with the iPhone 8, maybe with the iPhone 11 or 12 or something. Next up, we have quick charging. So we're actually expecting to see this in the iPhone 7. However, if we don't see quick charging in the iPhone 7, we'll definitely see this in the iPhone 8. Next up, we have the smart connector. So we're expecting to get this with the iPhone 7 Pro, although we don't know exactly what that smart connector would be used for, because on the iPads we have the smart keyboard, but on the iPhone 7 Pro we won't be having a keyboard, at least I don't think so. But regardless, the iPhone 8 Pro will definitely have a smart connector, and if it's successful with the iPhone 7 Pro, then the iPhone 8, the regular model, will also have a smart connector as well. I'm really curious to see what accessories Apple will launch with a smart connector. Maybe something that has to do with wireless charging. That could be also a case as well. Let me know in the comments if you have any cool ideas regarding what that smart connector could be used for. Number 7, we have the battery life. So on the iPhone 7, we're expecting to see a much larger battery than on the iPhone 6s. So 1960 mAh versus the 1750 mAh that we have on the iPhone 6s. But on the iPhone 8, I'll have to say it right now, don't expect a larger battery, especially because the iPhone 8 will come with a brand new design and larger display. Apple is going to need that internal space, and usually Apple likes to sacrifice the thickness of the device for a smaller battery. It happened with pretty much every iPhone model, so I suspect this happening with the iPhone 8 as well. However, keep in mind that with the iPhone 8, we're getting that Apple A11 chip, which is much more power efficient than the A10. And also with the iPhone 8, we're also getting an OLED display. And OLED displays, just as I said before, they save a lot of battery life. Apple might even introduce finally a power saving mode similar to the ultra power saving mode that we have on Samsung smartphones, basically where the performance is heavily limited and then everything is black and white and you only have access to specific apps. Next up, number 8, we have the capacity and the models. So in terms of the iPhone 7, we have the iPhone 7, then we've also seen the iPhone 7 Plus and the iPhone 7 Pro. Now most likely only the iPhone 7 Pro will make an appearance, so we'll probably just have the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Pro. Now the baseline model will start at 32GB unlike 16GB like we had with the iPhone 6s and before. So the iPhone 7 will have 32, 64 and 128GB, and then with the iPhone 7 Pro we'll have 64, 128 and even a 256GB storage option. Now with the iPhone 8 we do expect to see the exact same capacities as with the iPhone 7. And yeah, unfortunately 32GB is not enough, but I don't see Apple bumping the baseline model to 64 just yet. And also, adding a microSD card slot is not Apple-like, so that won't happen either. If there is going to be change in the capacities, the only change is going to be in terms of that 256GB model. If the iPhone 7 Pro will sell well, then we'll also get the 256GB option on the iPhone 8. Otherwise, it might just be on the iPhone 8 Pro, or it might just be removed completely. And finally, section number 9, the last section of this video, is the price. So with the iPhone 8, we do expect to see the exact same prices as with the iPhone 7. In case you don't know, these are the prices for the iPhone 7, the iPhone 7 Plus, and the iPhone 7 Pro. Now, just for the iPhone 7 Plus, there's a strong possibility that it won't happen, and if this is the case, then the iPhone 7 Plus's price would be the iPhone 7 Pro's price. So then these will probably be the prices for the iPhone 8. And actually I haven't said anything about the release date, so yeah, section number 10, let's have 10 sections, the release date. So in terms of the release date, this is most likely going to be September 2017, so yeah, it's a pretty long way ahead. Another option would be June, even though we haven't had a June iPhone launch since forever, but that might be the case as well. So either June or September. I would honestly put my money on September, especially since the iPhone 8 is going to be a pretty big change. So yeah, it takes a lot for those components to be manufactured. But yeah, this was everything we currently know when it comes to the iPhone 8. Feel free to subscribe if you have enjoyed this video and you want to see more iPhone 8 coverage. And also feel free to follow me on Twitter at ZenofTech for more iPhone 8 related updates there as well. In case you haven't seen my iPhone 7 Leaks and Rumors series, here's the series. Feel free to check it out. That's in case you're not watching this video after the iPhone 7 launch. But hey, feel free to watch it regardless. Other than that, let me know in the comments what are your top 5 features that you want to see, that you really want to see in the iPhone 8. And also if you made it to the end of this video, let me know in the comments by saying I've made it to the end of this video, hashtag iPhone 8 epic or something. And also be sure to turn on notifications on my channel on both desktop and mobile. On mobile by simply clicking on that bell icon next to my channel so that you're notified as soon as I upload a brand new epic video. But yeah, this has been it for this video, and this has also been a pretty long video, so huge thanks to every single one of you that made it to the this point of this video. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Son of Tech, signing out. Cheers.